Broadcasting live here on KVMR, live from the Wild and Scenic Film Fest. It's our 16th annual festival for Wild and Scenic. It's one of the largest environmental film fests in the United States, and it happens right here in Nevada City and Grass Valley, California. Tonight, for the next hour and a half, we're going to be broadcasting live, introducing you to I call them the everyday action heroes, the people who are coming together, special guests, filmmakers who are representing Wild and Scenic tonight to screen their films and tell their stories. You're going to get an introduction this evening, a teaser, so to speak, of what's to come over the next weekend. And we're just so excited that you're here with us. And my first guest actually is John DeGraff. And John, your film is called Redefining Prosperity. First of all, welcome to Wild and Scenic.
Thank you. It's good to be here again. I get here every year, so it's wonderful. Yeah.
How many times have you been to Wild and Scenic?
Probably about 9.
9 times.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about the film that you're featuring this weekend.
It's the story of Nevada City. So it's a film that looks at, it's called Redefining Prosperity, the gold rushes of Nevada City. So it starts with the California gold rush and then goes into the whole back to the land movement and on up to the present, all the wonderful activities here, and includes a very strong segment on KVMR with Mikhail Graham.
What's the story about Mikhail? Can you give us some insight to that?
He was one of the founders of the station back in '77, so he talks about how it started originally in a one-room shack on a mountaintop, and you know, the connection with Osborne and Woods, who called him up one day and said, hey, let's start a radio station here. So
30-something years later, here we are. So it's perfect, John, that you're our first guest this evening.
Well, you know, I love this town, and this film, in a sense, I live in Seattle, but I've been here so many times that this film is kind of a love letter to Nevada City. And, you know, and there are, at last count, about 22 Nevada City residents who are featured in the film.
Are you a back to the lander yourself?
No, but I'm very sympathetic.
So why the interest then in, what is it that appeals to you around the back to the land movement? And there is a back to the land movement happening right now. And by the way, John's film is called Redefining Prosperity.
Well, what appeals to me is that they were about quality of life. So if we look at somebody like Gary Snyder, who was one of the first to come here, the poet, what he was talking about was bioregionalism, about coming to a place, taking care of it, the importance being community, being connection with nature, being spirit of place. So in the poem that Gary reads a portion of or that he reads in the film, a portion of it he says, stick together, learn the flowers, go light. And I think that's a summation of a quality of life view which has stood in complete contrast to the original values of the gold rush, which were about get rich quick, use hydraulic mining, use whatever it took to destroy the environment, destroy and decimate the native people in order to get money quick.
It wasn't sustainable.
No, two different views of life, and I think the view of life that is prevailing in this community is the one that's about sustainability and community and place.
So Wild and Scenic Film Fest, John, is around action. What is one action that you'd want someone to take away with from this film, or even around a perspective?
Well, I hope this film is an inspiration to other communities around the country to do the kind of things that have been done here. So there's a section about the film festival. The big section of the film is about how the fight to save the beautiful Yuba River brought the community together, including both the people who might have been from the extractive industries initially and the people who were the back to the landers. And so it's really saying, you know, fight to save the beauty in your community, fight to build sustainability, the organic farms, the festival, the organization circle, all the kind of things that have happened here that can be duplicated in other places. It's not to say, hey, move to Nevada City, because this place is popular enough as it is,
right.
But it's to say you can do it too.
You can do it too, create it in your own community.
Absolutely.
And one day maybe John DeGraff will move here. When is your film screening, Redefining Prosperity?
12:30 tomorrow at the Nevada Theater, and 4:30 on Sunday at the Osborne Woods Hall in the Foundry.
Okay, it's Wild and Scenic. What's the wildest thing you've done in order to help make a difference for the world?
The wildest thing I've done to help make a difference for the world? I don't know. You know, that's a really good question. I mean, I think the most successful film I've had was called Affluenza, and that was a very popular film about saying we need to turn consumerism around and make caring and sustainability and all these other things the goal.
Right. John DeGraff, thank you so much for joining us here. The film is called Redefining Prosperity. We'll catch it this weekend at Wild and Scenic.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Thank you, John. I'm Elisa Parker. We're broadcasting live here from the Wild and Scenic Film Fest. We're at a hub here at the Media Lounge at Nevada City Winery, and we'll be with you until 6:30 this evening, give you a sneak peek of some of our filmmakers. Are you two together?
We are, yes.
All right. Come on, we're going to get close and intimate here. All right, Carolo and Jeannie.
Hi.
Welcome, first of all, to Wild and Scenic. Have the two of you been here before?
No, this is our first time.
This is the first time I've been to a Wild and Scenic, but I have been to a Wild and Scenic Film Festival that travels when it came out to the Bay Area.
That's right. We have a travel program as well. I was going to say, is it the first time you got wild? But I'm taking the bet that's not true.
That is so not true.
So not true. Okay, tell us about the film that you're screening here this weekend.
The film we're screening is called Keepers of the Future. It's a film by Avi Lewis. It's about our partners in El Salvador. Carolo and I work for an organization called EcoViva. EcoViva works alongside community social movements in Central America that are coming up with really innovative solutions to poverty, environmental degradation, and inequality, really.
Are you highlighting this in the film?
Absolutely, yeah. What it focuses on and really tells the story about is about a grassroots organization in El Salvador working on these very issues, on addressing inequality and grassroots solutions to climate change.
So what are one of the key, we've been talking about action. That's a big part of Wild and Scenic Film Fest. What are like two of the key things that you want the filmmakers, or not the filmmakers, but the film viewers to take away from this experience once they've seen your film?
So I'll give you one of the key takeaways is that politics matter, and participation in the political process and participating in this really does matter a whole lot. And the people from El Salvador, they really have a lot of very powerful lessons to teach us, and you can't take those for granted.
How about for you, Jeannie?
Well, another way you can get involved maybe more directly is this film was initially part of a larger project called This Changes Everything. And the LEAP Manifesto I want to mention as well. It's an initiative of Avi Lewis and Naomi Klein, the authors and activists. And if you can get involved through those channels, also through ecoviva.org, that's our website. Those are 3 channels through which you can learn more about these issues.
What was the process like in creating this film?
Oh, it was a really, really interesting process. Originally, it was going to be part of a larger project that was a film companion piece to This Changes Everything. This is a feature-length documentary, but unfortunately, in developing that, Avi found that the story arc of what was happening in El Salvador, it couldn't quite be shoehorned into that feature-length film. So in considering it and in talking to his team and he talking with us, he said, this could become a standalone short documentary. So it took a little while for that to happen, but here we are today, and we're really, really very happy and quite proud of what Avi's accomplished.
Tell us about Avi.
About Avi Lewis?
Avi Lewis.
Avi Lewis is a very, very talented film director. He also happens to be the partner as well as collaborator of Naomi Klein. He's an award-winning filmmaker, and I got to say that this work that he did for us in El Salvador was truly a labor of love, and we greatly, greatly appreciate what he's done in telling the story of the people in El Salvador with just such sensitivity and awareness.
So did the two of you go to El Salvador?
Yeah. For work, we go there multiple times a year. Actually, I lived in El Salvador for a short period back in 2014. And when I joined this organization later on in 2015, since then I've been back to visiting friends and working with EcoViva.
And this is also an opportunity and a standing invitation that we have to folks to join us. In fact, we're planning a couple of trips later this year, especially one in November during sea turtle hatching season. So that's really exciting.
So I could go down with you to El Salvador to learn about the sea turtles. That's great. What is, real quick, in like 10 seconds, what's the wildest thing that you've done, and maybe even the wildest thing around making a difference?
Oh my gosh, I have been with sea turtle egg collectors looking for nesting sea turtles so that we can collect their eggs and conserve them and make sure that those sea turtles get to the ocean.
So you are a turtle expert. I'm going to make note, Jeannie, turtle expert. Okay, are you a turtle expert, or what's the wildest thing, Carollo?
Boy, yeah, no, I too have gone out with the sea turtle collectors, and that's been really exciting and really wonderful. And there's just something really magical about holding these little baby sea turtles that are just ready to go out to sea, and there's just such hope and wonder in participating in that.
Great. Well, thank you both of you for joining us. The film is Keepers of the Future. It's screening at Wild and Scenic. When is it screening?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. It is screening in just a little bit tonight at 7:30 p.m. at the Grass Valley Oddfellows, and on Sunday, January 14th at 3:30 at the Yuba River Charter School. We've got these postcards kind of lying around, so please pick one up.
I like the marketing. Thank you so much, Carla. Nice to meet you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Yeah, my pleasure. All right, we're broadcasting here from the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. 16th year. Come on down. The price is right. I think the price is right. Hi, how are you guys? I'm Elisa. Nice to meet you too.
Hello, I'm Leo.
Hi, Leo. I like your glasses. First of all, I know if you're listening, you can't see Leo's glasses, but they have like a yellow tint.
Yeah.
Are you channeling the color therapy essence of yellow and hope?
I'm not sure about that.
You're not sure? Okay, where are you guys from? It doesn't sound like you're from Nevada City.
No, I'm not.
Well, I'm from the UK and Leo's from Austria.
Austria, how did the two of you, first of all, let's talk about your film, but I want to know how you two are connected as well. So the Last Fisherman, The Last Fisherman in Cornwall. Is that true?
It is, yeah. It's about the last traditional fisherman who's on the Rame Peninsula in Cornwall, and he still fishes like they used to fish 100 years ago, and it's a film that talks about him and his life and his village and also his future and his connection with Leo. Leo met him at a time where Malcolm couldn't continue to fish the way that he does, and with Leo's help, Leo became kind of like a little an apprentice for Malcolm, and they were able together to work out a way of keeping some of the traditions alive.
What are some of these traditions?
They still fish off the coast with a wooden dinghy, for example. Malcolm still does his wooden boats, where he is then putting the boats in the water and tries to catch crab and lobster in a very sustainable and in a way which is sustaining the fish stock and not fishing all out.
Does he sell his fish?
Yes, of course. He's a professional fisherman. He's selling to local restaurants and also to a fishmonger.
How did you connect with him in the first place?
I'm from Austria, as you noticed already. I'm not an English speaker most of the time, and I moved to the UK for a European project. And then in the village where Malcolm is living, I was working and I met him and I thought, wow, I'm fascinated by fishing, and I became his student.
Apprentice?
Yeah, his apprentice, kind of, yes.
Are you still a fisherman?
I never would call myself a fisherman. I'm still at the most an apprentice, and as much as I can, yes, I am.
What is the secret? What is the secret to catching the fish?
There is no.
Can you tell me?
No fisherman could tell you that fish can be here today and away tomorrow, because, like Malcolm says, they all have a tail.
Right. What is the story that you really wanted to tell? Like the heart of the story for this, and what is it that you wanted the audience to take away from this? Like the essence of what you want them to know about traditional fishing and also Malcolm.
Well, I mean, for me, and speaking for Leo as well, I think the story was so of its time that we had to make this film at this period of time. Otherwise, Malcolm's life would have changed quite dramatically, and is changing constantly quite dramatically. And the world around him, his village, the way that he does his work. If we hadn't have made this film, it would have there wouldn't have been any other chance to do it other than in this moment. So I think the main thing was we wanted to preserve a point in time for Leo's children and for the people who were from the area to look back on in years to come. That was one of our main motivations.
But also, I think, to respect the older generations and the old traditions. Nowadays, we are almost know everything by internet, and we can Google everything, but we don't know how to put wood into proper thing to use. And I think this film is telling us that there are people out still, some of them, who know how to use hammer and any other tool to make proper things.
So that's kind of the transference from this film to our everyday lives.
Yes,
right?
yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's Wild and Scenic. We get wild this weekend. This is your first time at this festival?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's not our first time here in California, but it's really nice to be back for us. Yeah.
Right. So this is our 16th year of Wild and Scenic Film Fest. It's one of the largest in the United States. What is the wildest thing that you've done Could either be personally or the wildest thing to make a difference. One of them, Leo. One.
To set up a youth center.
A what? A youth center?
Yeah. In European society, it's very wild because there's a lot of papers and bureaucracy.
All right, good for you. All right, James.
Actually, probably one of the wildest things I've done was actually making the film with this guy. I lived there in the village for 4 years, so I gave up my job in the north of England and moved down to the south for 4 years, and I kind of became an apprentice of Leo, who was an apprentice of Malcolm. So
standing on the shoulders of each other. Yeah. And that's a lot of what we're doing here at Wild and Scenic, is standing on the shoulders of those that came before us. Have a great time, you guys. So The Last Fisherman, when does it screen?
So we're screening tomorrow, Saturday, 10:30, and Sunday at 9:30.
Oh, look at Brendan, our camera. He's saying, tell us there to the camera.
What?
When where is it screening at? You just told me when it's screening.
It's screened tomorrow at 10:30, and it's screened on Sunday 9:30.
I got distracted, James. I'm sorry.
Sorry?
I was getting distracted.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I was just telling James I was getting distracted.
Okay. And our film is something for the early birds.
The early bird.
Yeah, you have to get up early to see our film.
That's what fishing is about.
Exactly.
Right? I'm going to take that. Early bird gets the worm.
Yeah.
Last Fisherman. Hey, thank you so much, you guys. James and Leo, really nice to meet you.
I only want to mention,
Yes.
it's a huge honor for us to be here.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll see you around. All right, we're broadcasting live here from the 16th Annual Film Fest. Come on down. Hi. How are you?
How are you? Good to meet you.
Sarah?
That's right. Yeah, good to meet you, Lisa.
You too. All right, Sarah. So your film is, the Myrnivator. Are you a runner yourself?
I'm getting into it. Myrna's definitely inspired me, as of my community up in Seattle has inspired me. But Myrna's, she's doing 50 miles and then some. So she's been a real inspiration as I've gotten into it.
So this film is around ultra racing.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so Myrna, she lives down in Georgia, and she's a teacher, and in her off time, or her downtime, she is an ultra marathon runner, and she doesn't really fit the mold of what an ultra runner looks like when you go to these races. She's but that's what the story is about. It's her breaking those barriers and breaking that mold of what you think a runner can look like, and she's just kind of shattering that mold.
Have you ever ran 50K yourself?
No, of course not.
What are one of the things, clearly she's had an influence on you. What are one of the things that you've taken away from her personal story and overcoming barriers and applying that directly to your personal life?
Oh, that's a great question. She, for one, is just so passionate about what she's doing, and that's contagious. And I try and think about that with my own hobbies and interests, is to have that same kind of passion. But she is up against a lot, not looking the way that most people do at these races. She's often the only African-American woman. She's heavier set. She doesn't look the way that most ultra runners look. She gets that she gets a lot of feedback that's like, you're not running, you're not a real runner, you're hurting your heart. She gets, the list goes on of what she gets. But she perseveres, and it doesn't stop her. And if anything, it fuels her. So I try to take all of that in as well.
I'm sure you highlight this in the film, but what are the stories that she tells herself in order to pass those either implicit biases that she might have, or even the other stories that people are telling her that could really limit anyone to thinking what they're capable of?
Yeah, when Myrna's racing, when she's in the moment of running, her focus is on the race, getting that through that mile and the next mile and the next mile. And I think a lot of those voices she just tries to tune out. And so she has a lot of mantras that are just keep running, one foot in front of the other. I think she's so focused, as many runners are, to just get the miles down. But then in her day-to-day life, it just, she's just not letting those voices really get to her.
What is it that motivated you to tell the story in the first place about her?
I think I wanted to see someone else on screen. A lot of my work is in the adventure world, and I wanted to see someone else on the screen than what we're used to seeing. She is hilarious and has so much character. I also wanted to be able to just give her that stage to talk about these issues in the running world. And I was drawn to her on a personal level, and then very honored that she would open up her life to me to be able to share that story.
That's great. When is the film screening?
That's a good question.
Good question. We're going to have to look it up. But Minervinator.
I've got two films here. So I've kind of got all the times mixed up. But I think there's one tomorrow afternoon and one on Sunday morning. Okay. So I'm sorry I'm not more specific.
Don't worry about it. Minervator. I'm going to say that 5 times, Sarah. And it's a steelhead quest. Why a steelhead quest?
Yeah, a steelhead quest is about Terry Myers. She set out to catch a wild steelhead on a different Northwest river every month of the year on a fly. And that's another one that's just purely passion driven. This is something that Terry really cares
These
about.
are your 2 films.
These are my 2 films.
We failed to mention that, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I've got 2 films.
Yeah, 2 films.
Yeah, so Steelhead Quest is tomorrow as well, tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And it's Wild and Scenic. What's the wildest thing that you've done or wildest thing to make a difference?
Following these crazy ladies around between Myrna and Terry, I think just trying to keep up with the characters in my films always feel pretty wild.
Great. Well, welcome to Wild and Scenic, and have an amazing wild time. And thank you so much for telling the stories and adventure. We're going to have to find out more from Sarah about your own adventurous life as well.
All right.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, we're broadcasting live here from the Nevada City Winery. And it's the 16th annual Wild and Scenic Film Fest. Hi, I'm Elisa.
Hi, Gianna Savoy.
Hey, Gianna, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So tell us about your film.
My film is called The Shape of a River, and it's really a love story to the Yellowstone River. And we tell the story, it's a short film, about 12 minutes, and we tell the story through 3 different people who have a connection to it in different ways. And we're hoping people will see the value of it and want to protect it. It's the longest free-ranging river in the lower 48, so we want to keep it that way.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
The story we hear a lot also in Yellowstone is around the wolves and the habitat. Is that implemented at all or told at all in your story?
Not so much that, but the fact that the river actually gives life to so much. The cottonwood trees and the ecosystem around it that brings in the wildlife and that keeps it wild is actually really important. So.
Why was it so important for you to tell this story?
Well, it's a story that we don't hear about a lot, and it's actually, we wanted to, we were working with another nonprofit called Montana Aquatic Resources Services, and they've got a project called Channel Migration Easements, and they're working with landowners to try to keep parts of the river free and work with them so that they don't armor the bank or rip-rap it in any way so that it can migrate and do its thing. And we just thought, well, we should let people know what's going on.
Definitely. And, a lot of the films that we see here at Wild and Scenic have action-oriented toolkits tied to it and things that you can do as a viewer and watching this at home, wherever you live. Does this have something like that we can take action with, even from our own living rooms?
Yeah, well, if on the website for The Shape of a River, you can actually connect with Montana Aquatic Resources Services and support them in this channel migration easement program. They're hoping that this will turn into a model for the rest of the country in keeping these rivers.
Are you a river gal yourself?
I'm actually an ocean gal.
An ocean gal. The truth comes out. All right, Gianna. Okay, but now are you a river gal?
Now I am a river gal. And, the obviously rivers flow to the ocean and vice versa, so it's all connected.
It's all connected, Gianna. The watershed. You're going to have to check. Have you been here before?
No, I'm so excited.
You're going to have to check out the Yuba River. That will turn you into a river girl for sure. River woman. Definitely. What's the wildest thing you've done to make a difference?
The wildest thing I've done. I made a film about wolverines.
Wolverines.
And
where are the wolverines?
They're actually, there's not too many of them. They're in the northern states, mostly Montana actually, and in the lower 48 and Alaska. But they're also circumpolar, so they're around the world, kind of close to the...
That is an unusual subject to feature, but we need to know about the wolverines. Do you live in Montana?
I do. I live in Montana.
It's one thing we need to know about the wolverines.
That they are not nearly as fierce as people think. I mean, they're little, but they're tough, but they're actually far more vulnerable than aggressive.
We're not that tall. We could be described that way, right? Fierce, little bit tough. Exactly. It was so nice to meet you, Gianna. Welcome.
You too.
Yeah, welcome to Wild and Scenic. It was great to hear about you. And when is the film screening?
It's screening tomorrow morning at the Nevada Theater at 9:30 on Saturday, and then on Sunday in Grass Valley at the Center for the Arts at 10:30.
The Yellowstone River. Thank you so much. Good to meet you. We'll see you around the festival. By the way, thank you, Gianna. There's all kinds of things happening here at Wild and Scenic. There are fireside chats, there are coffee chats, there are workshops, in addition to all the films. Hi, come on up. Hi, I'm Elisa.
Wendy Borman. So nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you, Wendy. Is that Wendy of the Weed, right? Women of Weed.
Yes, Mary Jane's The Women of Weed's my documentary.
So excited to hear more about this film. You got you're getting thumbs up, by the way.
Oh, good. Wonderful.
Right. Okay. Tell us about first the inspiration behind Mary Jane's Women of Weed. You're featuring women, right, connected with marijuana. You know where we are, too.
I know. This film festival seemed pretty perfect for the subject matter. So I moved to Colorado in 2014. And I was not a cannabis user. I actually, I didn't really understand it. But I couldn't avoid hearing about all the success that women entrepreneurs were having in the cannabis space. So being a filmmaker and with a journalism background, I was curious enough that I grabbed a camera and started interviewing women. So I interviewed 40 different women from 10 different states across the U.S. to get a really great broad cross-section of the types of women who are coming to the industry, and now we've got a documentary about it.
Anyone from California or from our community?
Oh, I couldn't tell this story without featuring women from California. So we don't have anyone from Nevada City, but I believe 9 or 10 of the 40 women are from different parts of California. So Northern California and Southern California.
Tell us about some of the women featured in your film, and what is something that you learned about, especially being someone that wasn't already connected to cannabis, right? So I'm sure you had a lot of surprises and wow, I didn't know that moments.
Well, we actually put that story in the film. So this is my third documentary, but the first time I've been in front of the camera, because I became this on-camera narrator to really show my thought process as it was changing, as I was learning about cannabis. And the real thing that changed my mind about it was just recognizing that the war on drugs has racial roots to it. You know, it's a really great system to continue to put black and brown people in jail. And once people showed me the statistics, I was like, wow, we've been sold this story that it's a gateway drug, and actually it's just perpetuating racism. So once I learned that fact, that really opened my eyes to everything else. And, you know, by the end of the movie, I don't want to give it away, but I changed my mind.
You changed your mind? Like you ate edibles? Maybe.
Well, I don't want to
give it away.
You can't give it away, but stay for the end of the movie because it's very entertaining.
Why women? And I say that because that's my platform too, is featuring women and their voices. But why did you focus specifically on women and women around marijuana?
Well, my snarky answer to that is why not women?
Right.
Right? We're 51% of the population,
right,
and we're less than a third of the speaking roles. So as a filmmaker, why not women? Secondly, if you look at cannabis specifically, when I started filming, 36% of senior leadership in cannabis was women. And you compare that to other industries, and that average is 20%. So there's more women having greater success in cannabis than any place else. So that was enough for me to grab a camera and interview it.
It's a tipping point. What is one thing you found out that we might not know about? When we think of female farmers, for example, female growers, what do you want us to know about that and take away, especially when it comes to action?
There's so many layers to cannabis. I would say if you are interested in finding out more, the great thing about women is we're natural connectors. So there are so many groups out there that are focused on women in cannabis. So whether you're interested in starting a business, or you just want to grow a couple plants in your house, or maybe there's somebody in your family that's interested in using it for medicinal purposes, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Find a group of women where you can ask and start educating yourself about it. I mean, I wish it didn't take me this long to learn what I've learned, and now that I know, I can't not know.
Do you find that the women growers were more connected together, and maybe were there communities of women that were growing together, for example?
Well, whenever you look at a female or minority-owned business, you find that they hire more women and people of color. They hire more veterans. They hire more people from the LGBTQ community. They recognize organically that the more diversity you have, the more successful your business is. And so what I found is whether it's women hiring other women or just giving other people opportunities that they may not have had in other industries where you can start a business. You don't have to be stuck at the senior vice president level. You can be the CEO.
That's right.
You know, like there's, I would say just start. If you're interested, get involved in cannabis, just start.
Real quick, what's the wildest thing you've done to make a difference? It's wild and scenic, so we're getting wild here.
Well, the wildest thing that I've done in my life is I filmed elephants in Thailand who were survivors of landmine accidents.
Wow.
And I actually had to walk through a landmine field.
Wow. We got a lot more to talk about. Wendy, thank you so much.
Thank you. Please come and join us on Saturday.
Saturday, it's screening. All right, the film is called Mary Jane's Women of Weed. Come check it out here at Wild and Scenic Film Fest. Hi, come on and join us. How's that? Is that good? Hi, okay, you're Steve?
Hi, nice to meet you. Yeah,
Nice
Steve.
to meet you, Steve. Okay, so valve turners. Oh, so were you at Standing Rock?
This was an action in solidarity with Standing Rock. There are 5 activists that shut down the 5 tar sands pipelines that are coming into the United States from Alberta, Canada.
Is this the story that we heard about, like, I don't know, was it a little over a year ago?
It was October 11th,
Right.
2016.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the film and the story?
So there's 5 tar sands pipelines that come into the United States. 2 are in Minnesota, North Dakota, Montana, and Washington State. And basically these activists went in with bolt cutters. They had to open the emergency shutoff valve locations to access the valves. So they broke chains and entered these areas to manually shut off the pipelines. And they did it all in the same day. So essentially 15% of the United States oil consumption was shut off for a day.
Where were you during all of this?
And so I was filming in Minnesota with Annette Clapstein and Emily Johnston. And for that action, I'm actually still facing charges also.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I have 2 misdemeanors for trespass. The activists are facing felony charges, so it's much more serious charges. We're kind of in the middle of the story. They spend time in jail. That's yet to be seen. So this is a short film about that one day of action, and I'm working on a longer film about, the aftermath.
Okay, so Steve, what was that moment for you? Clearly, especially in a lot of these films, we put ourselves out there, right? So what was that moment for you when you said, you know what, I realize that I will most likely be getting arrested, but this is more important? Like, what was the story you told yourself around that and why it was important?
Yeah, I've been documenting protests around climate change for a number of years now, so I put myself in arrestable positions. And I also practice civil disobedience myself as an activist. So for me, it was really just a thrilling shoot to be a part of, to watch these 2 incredible women, Emily Johnston and Annette Clapstein, shut down 2 Enbridge tar sands pipelines. And for me, it was thrilling, and now I'm going to be a part of a trial we've been granted the necessity defense, so we're going to have James Hansen and other climate experts come in and testify in front of the jury as to the threat of climate change and why these kinds of actions are necessary.
Do you have a lot of good support for you guys? Like, how can we help support you as well?
Yeah, there's a website, Shut It Down Today. There's a Facebook page. We're on Twitter. We are collecting donations for our legal defense, but we've been well supported, and we've had a lot. We've had lawyers come in and provide work pro bono. So we've been covered well. We still have a lot of expenses coming up to prepare for this necessity defense. So yeah, any donations.
What's the website?
It's www.shutitdown.today. And we also have a GoFundMe going for legal defenses.
You said you practice civil disobedience. So what does that actually mean? What are you doing?
I disrupted Congress.
What?
I disrupted the U.S. Congress.
Okay.
And I did a sit-in at the state capitol in Montana. We're just trying to draw attention to the climate emergency that we're in. And part of that is getting arrested. Part of that is doing direct action like the valve turners have done. And we're just trying to shake up the system and raise consciousness.
Steve, what do you want to tell everybody about why it's so important to get engaged and be involved and aware of something like this right now?
I mean, we're facing a climate emergency right now, and we need people to step up. We need people to divest. We need people to, state and city governments, colleges and universities. There's so many ways to get involved. Direct action, civil disobedience is one of them. But yeah, this is a global problem. We need everybody to come together to meet this challenge.
When is the film screening? We're talking about valve turners.
It screens tonight at 7 o'clock nearby here, and then also in Grass Valley tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
Okay, you can check out more information on the Wild Scenic Film Fest. The film is called Valve Turners. We're going to support Steve, right? We're going to show up for him. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm such an honor to be here.
Yeah, an honor to have you here. Welcome. We'll get to chat with you a little more in depth in the Media Lounge. I'm Elisa Parker. We're broadcasting here on KBMR and for the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. It's 16 years of Wild and Scenic. We are at the Nevada City Winery hub of the Media Lounge in our opening reception tonight. It's crazy tonight, Teresa.
I am good. How are you?
I'm great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
We connected a little bit via email and talking about the work that you're doing for youth and outdoor awareness and expeditionary learning. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the work I do is around diversity and inclusion in the outdoors, and I work to engage communities of color in our national parks and various other wild spaces.
So, and your program's called Women's Outdoor Summit for Empowerment.
Right.
So you started this.
I did. The Women's Summit happened this past June at the Presidio in San Francisco, and it was about bringing women together for empowerment. And the whole purpose was behind the sexual harassment issue at the National Park Service. So I thought, this is something I can do to bring us together, to have a conversation around this, to show that we are here and collectively we can make a difference.
What was one of the huge results of bringing all the women together? I remember that. There was quite a bit of press around that event at the Presidio. So what was one of the significant things that happened as a result of bringing the women together around that?
Amazing women reached out to me who weren't even in attendance and told me how much it meant to know that they weren't the only ones experiencing some of these issues and that they were encouraged to see a lot of the women there. And since then, there have been 3 different women's summits across the country. Even in Australia, they reached out and asked if they could, repeat what we did here in California. So it's been an amazing outcome from that.
It's amazing, Teresa. Where does your own experience and motivation drive from in helping to bring this to fruition and together?
The work I do is basically out of frustration. I don't see a lot of movement around diversity and inclusion issues. That's why it's important to see people of color at places like this to show that we do care about the environment. And it's important that outdoor retailers and nonprofits and environmental agencies understand the work we're doing is vital and that they reach across the table to work with us.
You're actually going to be leading a workshop as well, right? Can you tell us about that and when it's happening here at Wild and Scenic?
Right. It's happening tomorrow at 2:30 at the Activist Center, which is City Hall, I believe. Myself, Glenn Nelson from the Trail Posse, and Scott Briscoe, who's with Patagonia, and also Expedition Denali, will be on a panel and also showing our movie, Diversity and Inclusion in Our Wild Spaces. So I encourage everyone to come out.
What are you working on now? Like, what does Teresa have in store for everybody, especially for women right now?
Oh, we're working on another women's summit that's actually going to take place here in Nevada City.
No way. When is that?
I believe they're going to try and have it in June this year. So there are people here in Nevada City that reached out to me and said, hey, we'd love to have it here. So it's going to happen here. So I'm helping a little with that. I'm not spearheading it because my focus is really on matters of diversity and inclusion. So I'm working with Patagonia on a lot of those issues right now.
That's great. Why is it, Teresa, so important? When we talk about action here at Wild and Scenic and getting engaged and making a difference, what would be your message to everyone about why it's so important right now more than ever to get off the couch and get involved in whatever it is that lights them up?
Whatever it is that excites you, especially if it's about the environment, you have to make your voice. You need to make your voice heard. don't be afraid to speak up, because all too often I have people approach me and ask me, how can they get involved? You get involved by doing. You know, we've had enough conversations about this work. Now it's time for movement. So I encourage every outdoor retailer that's here, every nonprofit that's here, to find a way they can get involved in the work of diversity and inclusion in the outdoors.
Right. In fact, the theme this year at Wild and Scenic is groundswell. So we are rising up. We are rising up. Sometimes it feels like from the mud. And it's like, here we are. Real quick, what is the wildest thing you've done to make a difference?
Oh my God, just calling people out publicly. You know, the National Park Service, various outdoor orgs, various outdoor retailers, calling them out publicly, putting them on notice that they can't just sit back. So that's what I do, and I encourage others to do the same.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Teresa, she is the founder of Women's Outdoor Summit for Empowerment. And what is the name of the film again?
Diversity and inclusion in our wild spaces.
I love that. Okay, thank you so much, Teresa. We're going to be chatting with Teresa further. I think we are going to be coming back to the Media Lounge later. All right, thanks, Teresa. Taking action for Teresa. And I'm Elisa Parker. It's the Wild and Scenic Film Fest. We're broadcasting out. Come on down. You're the next contestant. Are you ready for that?
I am very ready for this.
You are, action-packed. Have you been to Wild and Scenic before?
I have not. This is my first time.
First time here. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Union, New Jersey, but right now I'm based in Washington, D.C.
Okay, so there's some political social activism thing happening. All right, let me have you introduce yourself, and what is your film?
My name is Jonathan Colby, and my film is Can We Save the Frog Prince?
I was watching your film, Jonathan. And so is that down in Honduras?
Yes, in Honduras, in northwestern Honduras.
Okay, tell us about the story, and then we're going to chat real quick about how you got even involved in this.
In a nutshell, the story is about a global amphibian extinction event caused by chytrid fungus, which is devastating amphibian populations around the world. It's the first time that a disease has ever caused mass extinctions all over. And this story chronicles the beginning of my team's adventure to try to save some of these frogs from extinction in a rainforest in Honduras.
How did you get involved in this in the first place, Jonathan? Are you a frog lover?
I am a frog lover, but I like to say...
We should all be, right?
We should all be. I like to say that they picked me. I've always studied reptiles and amphibians since I was very young, but once this disease hit, I decided that someone needed to jump in and be, the sponsor of the frogs, and that I could be that person.
So one of the things that's featured in the film is that the scientists are figuring out ways to both eradicate this and also ways to prevent other frogs do come in intact with this. It's more than a fungi, it's a disease, right? That once they're exposed, right, there's ways to help cure them from this. Can you tell us more about that?
Right. So the biggest challenge is that although there are some known cures of this disease, it's very difficult to have that carry over into the wild. So while some facilities have collected animals from the wild before they go extinct and have kept them in safety in captivity, we want to go a step further and try to do that, and then start putting them back where they belong, and put the puzzle piece back in nature with these frogs. And we think we might know how to do that.
One of the things, there's nothing insignificant in life. Nothing, even the smallest little frog. Because one of the things that's mentioned in the film is there is a local scientist, and he says it's affected everything. Right? Like he doesn't see as much of the wildlife that he used to see as a child growing up there.
Everything is connected, and frogs are a great bellwether of environmental health. And when really sensitive animals start disappearing, something's wrong. And, frogs are very important food chain links in the environment where they eat a lot of insects. They control insect populations. Some of those insects also spread disease to humans. But also frogs themselves provide food for lots of other animals. So if they disappear, there's a whole collapse of the ecosystem.
And it starts with the frog. Can we save the frog prince? What's the wildest thing that you've ever done, or wildest thing to make a difference, Jonathan?
I have sat in the middle of the rainforest for about 12 hours in the middle of the night to catch rainwater to see if it had this disease in it. And yes, we did actually find it blowing in the wind, falling in the rain.
Are humans affected from this?
No, humans are not. And that's an interesting question that a lot of people ask, because this fungus actually, it goes after keratin, specifically in the frog, but it's the same kind of keratin that's in your fingernails and in your hair. But this fungus is temperature sensitive. So even though it does go after keratin, it would die at your body temperature. So it does not currently affect humans.
When is the film screening?
It's screening Saturday and Sunday afternoon.
Where can folks go to get more information about your film and taking action around this?
They can go to our website. It's frogrescue.com. And they can follow us on our website, on Twitter, and on YouTube.
All right, Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. And
Nice to
it's,
meet you.
yeah. All right. David Ron. Hey. I'm
to
so
see you.
excited to see you.
I'm very happy to see you.
I know. We're moving over this way, David. We're getting close and intimate. David is a longtime fan and activist and is a longtime film goer here at Wild and Scenic Film Fest.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if you were here last year.
I didn't make it last year. I had a conflict, so I wasn't able to be here.
So, okay, I just want to tell everyone about David first of all. Like you're like the head of the Americans Against Fracking movement.
Yep, I do. That's one of my roles.
Just one of them?
A few. I wear a few different hats.
What else are you? Oh, you were a member of the Democratic California delegate?
I was up on the platform committee for the Sanders campaign at the Democratic convention and the platform committee meetings in Orlando last year. Yep.
You actually had influence, David Braun, around actually like shifting the platform of when we looked around climate change, for example.
That's right. That's right. So we were able to insert language talking about a climate emergency and basically saying that in the next administration, had Hillary Clinton have won, that we successfully passed that we would, within the first 100 days in office, we would call a meeting of scientists, advocates, the best minds to address the climate emergency. And we're really excited to move forward with that. And we're really excited that we were able to overwhelmingly pass that with the Democratic platform, both support from the Sanders and the Clinton campaign. Super interesting, super great, and sadly,
but it did prove the influence that we can have.
Oh, absolutely. And it also proved that people are willing to act on this, that people really, those of us who read science and follow the science know that we absolutely have to have action on climate, that this is one of the, if not the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems facing us in this planet at this time. So.
Huge, David. All right, David, you're actually here representing the film Unfractured.
I am.
So is she a friend of yours, the woman? Tell us about the story and then talk about your experience.
Yeah, so the story is about Dr. Sandra Steingraber, who's a research biologist, author, and an activist as well. She's a very firm believer that if you know what the science is and you know what the data is showing you, you have to actually take action on it. You have a moral responsibility to act on that. And sadly, we have so many scientists that they don't want to risk their funding or whatever it is. So they'll do the scientific studies. They'll show that things are clearly toxic and hurting people or the environment, but then they don't actually follow up with that. And that's one of the amazing things. So Sandra did a lot of work on toxics in the environment. Won an award from the Heinz Foundation in Pennsylvania for her work for toxics in the environment. $100,000 award. First time she had ever won that sort of award. And she took that money and she invested and started New Yorkers Against Fracking, which was a coalition that I think now is about 500 organizations.
Huge results.
Yes, with huge results, absolutely. So started that coalition, and we were told by environmentalists that we were not going to win a ban on fracking. At that time, I was living in New York, was a part of this coalition, one of the founders of that coalition as well. And against actually what I was told by other environmentalists, that we were really naive, that we were out of touch, that we simply just didn't understand political realities. Against all odds, we beat the fracking industry and banned fracking in the state of New York. And I think it's just a testament to what grassroots organizing can do and what you can do when you set your mind to it and you don't believe what naysayers tell you. Don't believe the haters. Know that we have a responsibility to try and win these sorts of wins and fight with all of your heart to do it. So that's what this film is about. It's about Sandra Steingraber. She really helped us frame the scientific argument for why we needed to ban fracking by really laying out the science in a very coherent, cohesive way. And that's what the film covers. But she's a mom. So she's dealing with her kids, and her husband had a stroke in the middle of our fight. And so it's this story about a woman who is willing to kind of give everything
Right.
to protect the planet, her community, her children in the future.
Persevere and don't mess with Mama Bear. So what would you want to, okay, so what are you working on right now, real quick, and how that's going to get us beyond that belief that anything's possible?
Well, absolutely. So I'm fighting.
Tell them, David.
Absolutely. So I'm fighting fracking here in the state of California, as well as oil industry influence. Governor Brown has said, we did some studies here in the state of California. Governor Brown said he would listen to those studies when they were done. The studies came out and said, unless it can be proven safe, fracking should be banned. It also had a lot of other conclusions, like stopping urban oil drilling, not allowing oil wastewater laden with chemicals to be used to irrigate crops. That's currently happening here in the state of California. But sadly, Governor Brown, 2.5 years after this study has come out, hasn't actually done the job. So we're really hoping this year, Governor Brown's holding a climate conference in San Francisco in September. We're hearing out of his office that he wants to do something big and bold on oil this year. And we're really excited for what that means, because we know that California can lead the nation, follow in the footsteps of New York, ban fracking, ban urban oil drilling, get these toxic chemicals off of our food, and we can have some really big wins. And that will actually encourage other leaders around the globe to stand up to big industry and say, we love the future more than you love your profits. And,
Nice.
and that's the kind of change.
Nice job, David.
Right.
All right, it's good to see you. You're going to be back here, I think.
Absolutely.
And then we'll hang out.
We'll talk more.
We'll hang out. David Braun. Thanks, David. David Braun, by the way, when you see those huge rise-ups and people in the streets around anti-fracking, the person that's leading that is usually David Braun. So exciting to have him back here, Wild Scenic. Amy Retzler, so great.
Hi, Elisa Parker. How are you?
I'm great. One of the founders of Sierra Harvest, which is extraordinary. And you have a film. Is this the film that Janine Lista and Val Camp worked on?
Absolutely, called Seeding Our Future.
Tell us about Sierra Harvest and how it's created such an amazing impact for our children, our farmers, the food that we're all eating, especially in our schools.
Yeah, so Sierra Harvest was created to be able to inspire and educate and connect people to fresh, local, seasonal foods. It's really that simple. And we've been around for 10 years. And we love the community that we get a chance to work in. And we have a big, big vision, honestly, for the next 10, 20 years. And it's really about making sure that we support our local farmers and giving them the training that they need. It's about making sure that people have the resources to grow their own food if that's what they want to do. And it's also about education, children, and the whole community. Really, local food is the way to go.
Amy Retzler and Malika Bishop are the founders of Sierra Harvest. Tell us about some of the implications and outcomes of this project. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years, first of all. So, like, how many kids are you serving, and what is it, and what does that look like now? Since you're like, you got an amazing grant a couple years ago, and you've just blown up in a good way.
So right now we're doing nutrition education every month in 26 schools in Western Nevada County. We serve 7,500 children every month. We've trained dozens of farmers and hundreds of community members how to grow food for this county. And you can see the impact of it when you go and shop for local food, whether it's through CSAs or the farmers markets or Briar Patch, who's an amazing partner with us. You can see that people really want this food. There's such a high demand for it. And for us to be able to support this transformation in this community, it's super rewarding work.
What are you hoping for the folks who go to see the film, and what do you hope are some of the, some of the outcomes and actions that they can take, even for the people who say, I don't have any kids in school anymore, so how does this apply to me?
Yeah, so some of the outcomes that we hope that we want to see for people that watch the film are that they get inspired and that they want to, oh my gosh, I want to have a backyard garden, and we can help them put that in. Oh my gosh, I think I want to maybe learn how to grow food on more of a commercial scale. And so if you want to become more of a homesteader, we can help you do that, especially through our Sustainable Food and Farm Conference that's coming up February 9th to the 11th right here in Grass Valley. And also just the educational piece. We do cooking classes, we do gardening classes. So if you're interested in getting more information about how to localize your life, we can help you with that.
This goes beyond the schools, if you didn't get that. Really, this is about, it's all in education for us. We're all connected to this. the food that we grow, it's an integral part of our overall health and well-being of our community. And I just think what you and Malika have started is extraordinary. And I always tell this story, but like Amy and I, 9 or 10 years ago?
9 years ago.
Was it Chef Ann Cooper, who's like the lunch lady, worked with Alice Waters, so we went to MLK, and toured her cafeteria and garden.
Yeah, and I have a quote here from Alice Waters' latest book. I saw her. She spoke here in September. And this kind of says it all. It says, food is the most political thing in our lives. Eating is an everyday experience, and the decisions we make about what we eat have daily consequences. And those daily consequences can change the world.
So true. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you, and congratulations again. It's good to be able to feature you here at Wild and Scenic Film Fest. I'm Elisa Parker, and we're broadcasting live here from the opening reception for Wild and Scenic. 16 years, one of the largest environmental film fests in the United States, right here in Nevada City and Grass Valley. We're going to be broadcasting until 6:30 this evening, and then stop by the Media Lounge all week long. We'll be having more extensive interviews with our special guests. And are you Linda? Hi, Linda. Have we met before?
I think we did last time.
Yeah. What are your other films?
So back in 2014, my film Bringing It Home.
Yes.
Won the jury award, which was a wonderful honor here. And then I was very lucky to come back as a juror 2 years later after that.
Congratulations. Okay, so something that we don't want to use, but straws, right?
No.
Billions and billions of straws every day.
Right. So what most people don't realize is something so small as a straw can really add up to, like you said, billions used every day here in the United States and worldwide. And I think what this film does is take that one small object and sort of really examine, well, what is the waste involved with just that one single-use plastic object? And how does that adding then into what we then get to is how much plastic waste is getting into oceans right now.
How much plastic waste is getting into the oceans? Like, what are we talking about when we look at numbers around straws?
So one of the interviewees in our film is a researcher named Jenna Jambeck, and she's widely quoted as one of her research group did a study several years ago, and what they came up with is that 8.5 million metric tons of plastic is washing into the oceans every year from our coastlines. And a lot of this is actually coming from inland sources, so it's not just a coastal problem. We have to really look at this from where is it really even originating from.
What was your inspiration behind creating this film in the first place?
Well, I think, I came from a place of having already done some video work and films in the environmental genres. And back home where I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, I've done some PSAs around litter, and it's been an issue that's kind of bothered me all my life. Why do people litter? What is sort of the psychology behind that? And now with this increase in plastic, which is a new substance, it's only been around for 60 years or so, and seeing these numbers increase on such a huge amount and the impact that it's having.
It doesn't go away.
And it doesn't go away. So I think, this is an educational film, but I would like to just let people know that it's a really fun film to watch. It's 30 minutes only. We have great animation. Our narrator is Tim Robbins, which is such a wonderful honor to have him come on board and help us with that. And I think, it really packs a lot of the good information that people can take away with them, but not be overwhelmed.
Linda, what's one thing that we can do as a result of this and as a result of the film and the action you want everyone to take?
Well, I think that's the reason why a lot of this film is resonating with people, is that it's not something that they're like, oh my God, what do I do? I mean, there's a very simple ask or a very simple thing that they can do when they leave the theater, and that's simply when they go into a restaurant to ask the server, please, no straw. Or they could take that further and certainly take more action with that, and that's what we're seeing now.
I bought my metal straws. I can put them in the dishwasher. It's all those little things we can do, isn't it? And when is the film screening?
So it's screening tomorrow night at 7 o'clock in the Nevada Theater. And it's showing before Plastic China, which is another film about this issue. But the other thing is what we talk about is how's this hurting our marine animals. And I think a lot of people might have seen this YouTube video of the turtle stuck in its nose. We got an exclusive interview with those researchers.
Linda, thank you so much for returning to Wild and Scenic. The film is called Straws. Really nice to meet you, and thank you so much for making a difference.
Thank you very much. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too. We'll be talking again, a more extensive interview with Linda. I'm Elisa Parker. We're broadcasting, and we're excited because we have, good to see you. We have the new executive director of Circle here. She was the director of Wild and Scenic Film Fest, transitioning, and congratulations on becoming the executive director of Circle, Melinda Booth.
Thanks, Elisa. I'm really thrilled with the new job, and I'm excited to be closing out sort of my last festival as director as well.
How does that feel?
Well, it's bittersweet, of course. I've been doing this. This is my 7th festival, and I'll still be totally involved and at the helm, but in a really different way in the future.
Right. So the theme this year is groundswell. Do you want to tell us about that and how that came to be?
Sure. Well, we decided our theme early in the year, and everybody's been pretty upset, frankly, since the election last year that I hang out with, and wanting to do something about it. And the only word that was resonating with me was groundswell. And that's what I started to see as I started watching films. And I was feeling the power of people rising up and wanting to say something and speak their mind and make change. And so it just clicked. And that's what I feel like this film festival does. It brings people together and allows you to take action.
What are you looking forward to most around the film festival? I know that's a hard question, but what are some of the key things around this festival this year?
My favorite thing about the festival is Friday afternoon. So what we've been experiencing the last few hours, everybody comes into town and the energy is palpable, and I see smiles on people's faces, and I see strangers in town, and I see people looking at their programs, figuring out what they want to do, and they're diving into a new experience. And that's what's special for me, is to realize that I had a hand in creating something that could actually make a change in someone's life.
It's extraordinary, Melinda. And I was reminiscing with some friends. Last year, I got on the plane the next day after Wild and Scenic to go to D.C. for the Women's March and to protest against the inauguration. That was a year ago, and so much has changed. It's been a wild year. Groundswell's the perfect theme for this year. And doesn't it feel good? I mean, thousands of people come to Nevada City and Grass Valley to celebrate one of the largest environmental film fests in the United States. It feels good, doesn't it, to actually reconnect with each other right now? I'm just feeling a little more nostalgic, I guess.
It's rejuvenating, right? You're with people who share similar thoughts, have exciting new ideas, who you can disagree with or agree with, but you can have a conversation with and just start talking and making things happen. It's pretty special.
Wild and Scenic's around solutions. And let's tell everyone real quick, so Melinda's the new executive director of Circle, South Yuba River Citizens League. Can you give us a quick lowdown on Circle for folks who are hearing about it for the first time?
So the Wild and Scenic Film Festival is a program of an organization called the South Yuba River Citizens League, an organization that was founded back in 1983 to stop dams being built on the South Yuba River. The community came together and said, we don't want this for our community. And after a 16-year-long fight, we're ultimately successful and won Wild and Scenic status for 39 miles of the South Yuba River. And then they said, what's next? And realized there was actually a lot more that needed to be done for the river and for our community, and have continued on. And in 2003, founded the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. And here we are 16 years later. It's a fundraiser for our year-round conservation work, this event, as well as an educational event and increasing the groundswell for the environmental movement as a whole.
Rising up. What's next for Circle? Is it the Centennial Dam and blocking that?
Our big campaign right now is an opposition to a proposed dam on the Bear River. So once again, we find ourselves fighting a dam that we think is not the right solution. It's a 19th century solution to a 21st century problem, and we're committed to being smarter than that.
What do you want to tell everyone real quick, Melinda Booth, Executive Director of Circle, about why it's so important to come to a festival like Wild and Scenic and experience it firsthand?
A festival is such a different experience than watching films at home in your living room by yourself. To sit in a dark theater with other people and watch the big screen with the amazing sound, it moves you to the core, and then you have an opportunity to speak with the filmmakers. You've been doing interviews with them. They're here. They have Q&As after, the people who are featured in the films. It's an absolutely incredible inspiration and moving experience that you can't miss.
Can't miss it. It's an extraordinary experience. Thank you, Melinda. Lisa. Thank you so much for being here and for helping to co-create this experience here. It's really amazing. Melinda Booth, our new executive director of Circle, and I'm Elisa. Hi. We're broadcasting here from Wild and Scenic. What is your name?
I'm Aji Piper.
Hi, Aji. Are you here representing a film?
I'm here representing a work in progress project.
Work in progress project. What is that? I'm dying to know now.
So it's a film called Youth v Gov that's currently being filmed. It's filmed.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about it.
It's documenting the Our Children's Trust federal case, where 21 American youth have come together to sue the federal government because of their action against our futures and against our rights.
Is this connected with Earth Guardians?
Yes, Earth Guardians is an organizational plaintiff on it, so any kid that's part of Earth Guardians is part of the case, so it's named as a plaintiff on that case, so yeah.
So what do you hope to happen with the project and documenting this?
I think the case can be really, really powerful, but it's only powerful if a lot of people know about it, because even if we win the case, it's still going to be a hard fight making sure change happens. So the hope in documenting this project is that that people relate to a lot of the situations the youth are in with their homes being affected by climate change, and also that they understand how urgent this is, and maybe it'll reach more people this way, so that even if we win or lose the case, momentum doesn't stop there, and we keep going and keep making change.
Ashi, you talk about personal motivation and sense of urgency, so where does that stem for you on a personal level? And how old are you, by the way?
I'm 17. It comes from a couple places. Personal motivation to protect my own interests, being air I breathe, water I drink, land that grows food which I eat. Different things I love, like snowboarding, a lot of winter sports and water sports, things that won't necessarily be possible. The Pacific Northwest is where I live, up in Seattle. And so that climate will change. And I just, that's all places I really treasure. But also I just think it's important to keep a balance in give me hope by taking the information that I've given or that I'm, bringing to the table and making sure to spread it all the way around. Because it just gives this feeling that you have the world supporting you, and
it's a big deal. Our theme this year is groundswell, so that rising up and coming together. What do you want to say to everyone about, especially your fellow youth, about why it's so important to get engaged right now and get involved, when whatever it is that lights them up?
Yeah, for fellow youth, now is like the small chance you get to take a powerful message and run with it, and to make something for yourself. And no matter who you are, no matter what you like, I guarantee you that climate change affects it. And it's always important to recognize that the environment that you live in and the environment of the world benefits you.
All right. Nice job. Thank you. Yeah, welcome to Wild and Scenic, and thank you for being here and for everything you're doing. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we were reading this over. A fence and an owner during the drought.
Those are two separate films.
Okay, good to know. I was like, during the drought and a fence. So you're busy. You got two films here.
Yeah, and also presenting a couple of other short films on Saturday around 11:30 in the morning. So I'll be probably showing two films in that presentation too. So got a lot of films that we're presenting here.
You're a prolific guy, Peter.
The daughter wanted to take it in a much more regenerative way. And the guy who was the ranch manager really didn't want to change because he knew these newfangled ways wouldn't work. And she really insisted. She wanted him to stay on. She really liked him, but she really wanted to try these new methods. And right about the time they were starting their new methods, a 15-year drought hit. And instead of having to sell all their herd like their neighbors did, they actually got to keep half of it, and they basically rejuvenated their land, 20,000 acres, through the way they managed their cattle.
Wow, that's amazing. I hope we aren't encountering another drought. Where do you live?
I live in Phoenix.
Oh, okay, so it's dry. It's always dry.
It's always dry.
It's always dry. And tell us about during the drought. Speaking of drought.
The drought is just in a different part of the country. This is in sort of, if you look at Kansas, in the middle at the top, there's a young farmer named Michael Thompson, who too was changing the way he was grazing, and he was incorporating cover crops with his grazing. And his land was in such better shape than his neighbors during those really, really heavy droughts in 2011 and 2012 that he didn't have to sell any of his cattle, and he was able to produce enough forage during these droughts for their animals to live. And he's won some big awards in the state. And
what was his secret?
The way you manage the cattle. We call it adaptive multi-paddock grazing, or AMP grazing. It's basically you keep all your herd in one herd, you don't have a bunch of them, and you don't let them roam big areas for a long period of time. You keep them really packed together, and you move them almost hourly or daily. And it replicates the way herds moved across the Great Plains, where they always had to stay away from the wolves, and they're always packed in together, and they're always fighting for food. And that heavy hit, and then their manure, and then they leave, and then that long rest period is what the grasslands evolved to do. And so these farmers are inventing and trying and experimenting with ways to do the same thing.
So are you passionate about farming?
Yeah, I am. I think these farmers and ranchers are heroes, and they're scientists. And so part of the work I'll be presenting tomorrow is we've got a group of scientists now that are going to measure what these folks are doing, sort of, and their neighbors, to see if it's indeed better when you think about carbon, when you think about methane, when you think about water.
So you're doing a workshop as well?
Yeah.
When is your workshop?
It's at 11:30 Saturday morning.
I have a feeling people are going to have to take notes on all of your on all your films. But because you have a fence and an owner. When is that screening?
I don't know.
We don't know. And during the drought, you're going to have to go online and check it out.
Got here.
You just arrived.
Parked the car.
Thank
from
you
the
for
airport
being
in
here.
Sacramento.
Peter, what's the wildest thing you've ever done to make a difference?
Oh.
And I don't know if that involves cows.
The wildest thing I've ever done to make a difference. Start making Carbon Nation, this feature film that played here when we premiered it a few years ago. Just audacious and crazy, and there's a phrase called the courage of ignorance, where you have courage because you don't know what's coming.
Right, and you just jump on in. Yeah. I think a lot of us have been in that scope. Don't you think a little bit this year?
Yeah, I mean, we're not ignorant.
We're not ignorant. No. We're jumping in with courage.
Kind of courage.
That's a different kind of courage. And actually, there's a lot of that courage here at Wild and Scenic this weekend. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll see you around the film fest. See you around. Thank you. Several thousand people come to Wild and Scenic every year. Hi, Brian.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for waiting. It's very Yasuni Man.
Yasuni Man, yes.
I haven't seen Yasuni Man yet, but I'm really excited to check it out. Tell us about the story.
Yasuni Man is about a conflict taking place in the Ecuadorian Amazon between human rights, biodiversity, and natural resource exploitation. Yasuni is the world's single most biodiverse forest, and inside of it live Ecuador's last remaining clans that are in voluntary isolation. And below this reserve is Ecuador's largest untapped oil reserves. So it's a conflict between biodiversity, human rights, and
How did you get connected in this in the first place and learn about it?
I started working in the Ecuadorian Amazon as a guide in 2005. And it was through my year guiding there that I wound up hearing of this story. And I was invited back to go into the core of this biosphere in 2009 through an indigenous man by the name of Toba Baiwa. And he invited me in to come to see his community and see the core of this mega diverse forest. And he asked me if I would be willing to help tell his story. And documentary film was that way. And after 7 years, we began development in December 2009 and finally finished in October 2016. So it was a passion project for sure.
How much has the Amazon forest changed in those years while you were doing this film? If at all.
It has changed. I mean, I've seen so many changes personally. You know, the infrastructure has grown drastically, new bridges, new roads further encroaching into this biosphere, and that's part of what the film is about. The population is expanding as well. The demand on the forest resources is expanding. And, you know, what I've seen is the rights of the indigenous people there has really taken a hit, as well as the preservation of the biodiversity.
How did you get involved in the first place in becoming a guide through the Amazon?
I went to school at University of Montana, and I worked as a wildlife biologist doing several different kinds of research projects. I was I live trapped wolverines.
There's another woman from Montana that did a film on wolverines here. Gianna.
Gianna. I know
Gianna? Okay. I'm like, how many people are doing films on wolverines?
I didn't do a movie on them, but I did live trap them and backtrack them, and I worked with Alaskan brown bears, and I did large biological research projects on reptile and amphibian diversity and population dynamics. And it was through doing all these research projects, I wanted to find a way that I could help animals without having to put my hands on them. So I thought maybe I could tell their stories through film, and it was through these several years of cultivating, this knowledge of wildlife conservation and biodiversity that I found myself in Ecuador, really through a passion of frogs. Ecuador has among the highest diversity of frogs in the world, and it was just like, wow, I got to get there and see this.
You got to be there. The film is called Yasuni Man. When is it screening?
It screens tonight in Fellowship Hall at 7:30, and it screens again tomorrow morning at Stone Hall at 9:30.
What is the wildest thing that happened to you while you were down in the Amazon?
That is a loaded question, because if you see the movie, it's a wild, wild place. I had been parasitized by botfly maggots, had to remove those from my leg. Saw, an amazing diversity of species. The biologists that I wound up employing on the project, they wound up finding new species to science. So a lot of firsts for me and a lot of really amazing things. So I hope people will come out and check it out tonight and tomorrow morning.
I'm going to watch Yasuni Man. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being first time at Wild and Scenic.
Yes, it is first time, but I've been hearing amazing things about it for many years, and that's why I submitted our film to this. So I highly recommend that other filmmakers in my kind of position definitely come and support the film festival and submit next year.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. All right. So many extraordinary action heroes here. Hi, how are you? I'm Elisa.
Nice to meet you, Elisa.
Hey, Shane, right? So, Shane, A River's Last Chance. Is this about the Eel River?
It is the mighty Eel River in Northern California. It's been a river of fortune for the past 150 years, also a river of boom and bust industries. So it's kind of looking at the entire history of the river and trying to figure out how to forge a more sustainable path forward for ecology and economies.
How did you get connected into this and doing a film around the Eel River?
Well, it's my third feature, and when I was working on my first feature, Wild Reverence, I featured a little bit of the Eel River in that. And now is a really critical time for the Eel River. There's a dam relicensing coming up that only happens every 50 years. And one of the main limiting factors on the eel right now facing wild salmon and water quality is the marijuana industry. So with legalization, we have an opportunity with a whole suite of environmental regulations and opportunities to really get the river back on track.
Are you noticing, Shane, at all on the agriculture and the growing industry that it's impacting the river at all? And how are folks educating growers around that?
It's absolutely affecting the river, just especially in the last 4 years. The green rush has absolutely exploded up there. And there's a whole growing movement in regenerative agriculture, like a permaculture, which is coming full circle to what the very first back to the landers that brought marijuana to that region were practicing. So it's really neat to see that evolution, and that kind of farming techniques can save the salmon and the river.
Shane, what do you want everyone to take away? Wild and Scenic's about action and solutions. So what would you want to tell them about how they can get involved and engage when it comes to the Eel River and around the film A River's Last Chance?
Well, we're going to be developing an entire action plan over the next year and touring this film all across the West Coast. So people can get involved at pacificrivers.org or northforkstudios.net. And rivers are our public commons, and we live in a democracy, so everybody's voice really matters. And that's the only way we're going to have sustainable ecology and economies.
That's right. Have you been to the Yuba River?
I have.
All right. You swam in the Yuba River?
I have.
You swam in the eel, of course.
Nice.
What's the wildest thing you've done to make a difference?
The wildest thing I've done? Well, my first film changed some legislation up in Washington to stop the killing of wild steelhead. So, and then my last film, we were working on legislation in Oregon to reform the logging practices. So I'm hoping this film we can influence the dam relicensing as well as changing some of the marijuana practices.
Congratulations. Thank you so much, Shane Anderson. And when is the film screening?
The film is screening tomorrow at 10 o'clock in Grass Valley and 4 o'clock in Nevada City at Oddfellows. So,
Thank you, Shane.
thank you kindly.
A River's Last Chance. We'll see Shane around Wild and Scenic. How are we doing on time, Brendan? We're doing good? How are we doing on time? Okay, hi, how are you?
Good. Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy. Nice to meet you. Is this your first time at Wild and Scenic?
This is my first time at Wild and Scenic.
Hey, what brought you here?
So I'm here with the film Naturally Selected. It's a short film about environmentalist Sam Van Leer in the Urban Paradise Guild of Miami. They're an environmental justice organization that works in inner city Miami and fights pretty much every environmental battle there is.
Are you from Florida?
I am from Florida.
Did you grow up in Florida?
I grew up in Tampa and then went to University of Florida for 4 years.
We talk a lot about action and solutions. So the folks that watch this film, Naturally Selected, what do you want them to take away with, and what do you want them to do? You can tell me.
Yeah, so we really want to inspire people to get involved in their communities with the film, and the film is it's supposed to be a comedic film. It's sad at some parts, but we hope it'll make people empathize with someone who's really giving their all for communities and for the environment, and to inspire them to do the same where they are.
So I'm just going to make an assumption, you're a younger guy.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where does your own personal motivation stem from around this and action and activism?
Well, coming from Florida in such a threatened environment, it's probably going to, large parts of it are probably going to be underwater within 50 years. So there's really, I have a sense of urgency in trying to protect my home. And so what I did was I found the people who are already doing it and doing it really well, and I'm trying to support them. So that's the motivation of the project.
All right, Jimmy, so the theme this year is groundswell. What does groundswell mean to you this year especially?
Groundswell means to me, I would say just people who otherwise would not be getting involved in these sorts of issues, like learning about them and then finding that they really do have the power to change the world that they live in and to make it into a better place for everyone.
Nice. And how is that applying to you on a personal level?
Yeah.
My own rise up.
Yeah, my own rise up. I was inspired to keep working on this project. We're actually working on a feature-length version of Naturally Selected that we hope to bring even more awareness and support to the organizations that we're covering.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's Wild and Scenic. What's the wildest thing you've done to make a difference?
Just working on this film, I would say. It's about as wild.
Is this your first film?
This is my first film, yes.
All right. Well, congratulations, Jimmy.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Enjoy Wild and Scenic and Nevada City and Grass Valley. It really is an extraordinary film festival. Are you ready to have some fun?
I'm very ready to have some fun.
Are you ready to connect with thousands of other amazing people like yourself?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll see you around.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. All right, we are broadcasting here. You might hear the buzz because we're broadcasting from the Nevada City Winery. It's our opening reception tonight, kicking off the 16th annual Wild and Scenic Film Festival. I'm Elisa. We're going to be broadcasting here until 6:30 this evening, and thank you so much for joining us. We're giving you a sneak peek of some of the filmmakers' films that are showcasing this weekend, and we have Camilla. Hi, Camilla.
Hi. Nice to be here.
Nice to meet you, too. So, Killing Games.
Yes, Killing Games is about wildlife killing contests in North America, and most people have no idea these are.
I had no idea when I was reading about this.
Yeah, coyotes, bobcats, foxes, prairie dogs, targeted. Basically, the person who wins the most or kills the most animals or the largest wins a trophy, a belt buckle. So really, we're trying to raise awareness about this and ideally start a grassroots campaign to end this practice across North America.
How did you learn about this in the first place?
Well, I run an organization called Project Coyote. We're a national nonprofit organization based in Northern California, and we learned about this practice happening in Northern California. The more research we did, the more that we found this is happening all over the country, not just in the West, but East Coast, Midwest, every state, it's legal with the exception of California now. Yeah.
So, this film fest is a lot around actions and solutions that we can all take. So what do you want everyone to know around this, and what are some of the things, like top 3 things that we can do to ensure that this doesn't happen?
Really what we want people to know is that this is legal, that it's, most people when they find out about it, they're outraged, and so we're hoping that like Blackfish in the Cove, that this promulgates people to take action and inspires them to take action. And ideally, those actions would be contacting their state legislator, contacting their state wildlife agency, and really spreading the word, because we know that when people are given the opportunity to weigh in on this, they want an end to it.
What are some of, what is one of the personal stories featured in this film?
So we have a number of spokespeople, but we have some Native Americans who speak to the fact that this very much violates the reverence for life that they have for coyotes and bobcats and all the species that are targeted in these kinds of horrific practices. So we have many different voices. We also have hunters, we have ranchers who speak to the ethics or lack thereof of this, and the fact that this isn't about science, this isn't about wildlife management, this is about persecution and gratuitous slaughter.
And it's happening right here in our backyards.
Absolutely, though I will say that we did ban it in California, and the hopeful part of this film is that we show this can be done. We show how we did it in California. It was grassroots momentum, we inspired people, and that's ultimately what we hope to do with this film.
That's great. And what would you say the theme this year at Wild and Scenic is groundswell. What does that mean to you on a personal level, and how do you feel like you've been rising up in the last year?
I feel like it's been a very painful last year for a lot of us who work on conservation, but I also feel that the response is that more people are getting active and more people want to see change, and our hope and our belief is that we are already starting to see that groundswell. One need only look at Standing Rock and some of these activities to know that there is a groundswell of opposition to the devastation that we see happening. So I actually feel very helpful, and I'm just so pleased to be here with comrades and wonderful filmmakers. So
thank you so much, Camilla. The film is Killing Game's Wildlife in the Crosshairs. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm delighted.
And for everything you're doing to make a difference.
Thank you.
Okay, and how are we doing on time? Okay. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Nice to meet you. I'm Elisa.
My name is Michelle Gomes. I'm the co-creator of Saving Sea Turtles, Preventing Extinction.
We were just talking about sea turtles earlier, right? So nice. So tell us a little bit. Is this featured in a film?
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
Is there a particular film?
Oh, it is. It's a feature film. It's a 70-minute film, but the version we're showing here is a 45-minute version, and it's showing tomorrow at 1:30 at the Center for Arts in the
in the Center for the Arts in Grass Valley?
You got it. Yep.
Okay. What do you want us to know?
It's also showing on Sunday at 12:30 at the charter school, the Yuba.
So have you actually been on site with the sea turtle?
I have.
Tell us about that experience.
It was an extraordinary experience, because what we did was we originally started to do the filming in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, where every year there's an annual sea turtle stranding occurrence that happens, and they know when it's happening. It's going to happen right after Halloween in the first 2 weeks of December, when live cold stunned sea turtles are going to be washing up after every high tide. We decided we wanted to film this annual phenomenon that happens nowhere else in the world, and then what ended up happening was an actual crisis. There was a mass sea turtle stranding that happened, and so thousands showed up. So over 1,200 sea turtles showed up, and we captured the whole thing unfolding over an 8-day period. It was unbelievable and extremely inspiring as well, because there's so many volunteers that are so willing to be uncomfortable in order to save lives.
Right.
And so this film is really about the goodwill efforts that are making a difference for this species and preventing it from going extinct. And individuals all along the eastern seaboard of the Atlantic coast and in the Gulf of Mexico and into Mexico
are all engaged.
Is
this your first time?
It was.
Seen it at Wild Scenic?
It is. It's my first time.
Well, welcome here.
Thank you so much.
Being here. Michelle, thank you for everything you're doing to make a difference. And it sounds amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, and we have like 30 seconds. Hi, Stephen. Come on down. You're going to be our final guest.
Oh, wow. Hello.
The final guest. So real quick, what is your film?
Earth Wisdom for a World in Crisis.
That sounds really deep. That's all I'm going to say about that. Right,
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's a film about indigenous land rights, and we followed indigenous leaders at the United Nations, making their appeal to world leaders to instill kind of a respect for the earth and an appreciation of native cosmologies. And we then went to Standing Rock and filmed a sort of critical week at Standing Rock where, as you know, a lot was on the line, and it sort of redefined the whole notion of, winning and losing, because, as you know, there's no losing.
That's right.
When you're philosophically working, for the earth is here, the battle continues. And it's a very inspiring. I'm just essentially channeling native wisdom.
Right. When is the film screening?
Screening tomorrow at 10:30 in Grass Valley, and about 12:30 here in Nevada City.
Okay. So as we're wrapping this up, Stephen, what do you want to tell everybody about why it's so important to be engaged, taking action, and even coming to events and festivals like this? The kickoff of Wild and Scenic.
This festival is founded on the right reasons. It's about water, it's about nature, it's about the power of what we need to survive, all of us. And this festival has it. It's not about the bottom line, as they say in my film. It's about the circle that we're all part of, and that circle is growing and expanding. And I think you guys are doing a lot to expand that circle.
We're expanding the circle. All right, I'm Elisa Parker, broadcasting live here from Wild and Scenic Film Fest. The weekend has just begun. Come and enjoy and see the films, take action, and thank you to all the guests who joined us tonight. Thank you to KVMR and for Circle for making this extraordinary event happen for the 16th year. We'll see you this weekend.